It's fitting, this motorcade taking Mrs. Ford through her very close to nearby where she grew up as a child, just a fountain northeast, as this will go up Fulton onto Lake and into East Grand Rapids, where the Fords maintain their home here, while splitting up time, spending most of their time actually in Virginia. And Grace Episcopal Church. The church has changed locations, but the name remains the same, the heart of the congregation there in East. And looking forward to those who will come out on this beautiful summer afternoon to line the route and bid Mrs. Ford farewell.
We are efforting, one of our reporters, we do have reporters set up all along the motorcade route. Of course, we'll have full coverage of the service for you that starts at, and as Rick mentioned, it may start earlier, but it is slated to start at 2 o'clock. We, of course, are ready for whatever comes our way. It's possible that we have someone in the motorcade as well. Steve Kelso may be in the motorcade, and we may be able to bring you that perspective as well. Brett Thomas is outside the museum right now. Brett, what are you seeing?
The motorcade is now preparing to get moving here. The motorcycles and police officers who are on the motorcycles have already pulled out onto the road there in front of the, well, actually behind the museum. The rest of the vehicles are starting to take the road, so to speak. You'll soon see that the hearse start to move once they've gotten the intersection cleared out and ready to go. And that's where the family will follow. Hearse just starting to move now, leaving the grounds of the museum, headed out onto the road, which will take them to the first leg of their journey as they head to East Grand Rapids. You know, guys, I was privileged enough to be able to ride in the motorcade when President Ford was taken all the way to East Grand Rapids. A real honor to do so, but really thrilling in a lot of ways, because it gave me a first-hand feeling of what it would be like to see the kind of love that West Michigan was bringing out for the president then, and what I would imagine they'll be bringing for the First Lady now. As we went through the first few turns here, it didn't appear initially, when I was doing this several years ago, like there was anybody that was out here, but as soon as we turned onto Monroe, all of a sudden there were a lot of people there ready. They had brought their flags and their children and their families out to pay tribute to the president who had passed away at the time. This time around, of course, it'll be the First Lady. It'll be interesting to see what everyone else who is working along the route here experiences along the way from the museum on over to the church.
As we mentioned, the motorcade will travel through downtown along Fulton, and 24-hour News 8's Larry Figursky is at the corner of Fulton and Monroe right now. Larry?
Hi, Sue. Yeah, and I think if you're looking at our camera shot here right at ground level at the corner, as you mentioned, you can see police have shut off a couple of roads here. They've done so here at the corner as well, as we do anticipate, obviously, soon the motorcade making its way. And there are more and more people beginning to line the streets here. And we talked about it a little earlier, the thought being that many people were timing out their lunch breaks here in downtown to come out and line the streets, and literally in the last 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm assuming most of these people are watching our coverage and learning that the motorcade is about to head their way, so people beginning to line the streets here as well.
All right, thank you, Larry. More live shots here from the heart of downtown Grand Rapids as the motorcade has now left the museum and is beginning its very reverential procession through downtown Grand Rapids and out to East Grand Rapids for the funeral service.
You can see people on the sides of the road coming out. Now, this is the lunch hour downtown. A lot of people aware now of what's happening. They're coming out to the sidewalks to pay their respects as the former First Lady goes by.
Folks bringing out their cameras today, wanting to capture these images, this moment being a part of history. Richard Norton Smith, one of the eulogists today, I was reading here online, quoted this morning, trying to come up with some themes. He says it's not going to be easy to draw all the parallels in Betty Ford's life. He brought up one good thing, and if you've watched the documentary from 2009 about Betty Ford, The Real Deal, so you watch the hearse go by.
You're gonna what?
And let's quickly go to 24-hour News 8's Danny Carlson further up there on Fulton. Danny?
Brian, as Larry mentioned, as the lunch hour has started, people have started lining this area. We're about a mile away from the museum, and Peggy and Dawn came out today. Ladies, tell us, why was it important for you to come out and pay your respects?
Well, we just wanted to take a little bit of time to pay our respects to a great lady of the city. Dawn, same thing?
Same thing. Just, you know, it's a great moment for Grand Rapids, you know, and I think we should show respect to a great lady. Yep. Done some very nice things for us,
Yes.
the city.
What do you think that people should remember most about Mrs. Ford?
Probably the breast awareness for cancer. That was one thing that Betty Ford just brought right to the limelight. Nobody talked about those things before. Substance abuse, the same thing, and now it's prevalent.
Thank you so much. As you can see, the motorcade is starting its procession down Fulton Street, heading east towards Grace Episcopal Church.
This is another one of our vantage points of our cameras set up as we watch the procession make its way toward Grace Episcopal Church on Hall. That's in East Grand Rapids.
This is right down the street, actually, from where we're broadcasting from here in Heritage Hill. Half tempted to run out and watch it go by myself. It's just a big part of history here. Heartened to see the lunchtime crowd, Sue, as you mentioned. A lot of folks probably out at this time of day. They did seem to come out of some of those restaurants there on Fulton, 3-4 deep, to pay their respects to the former First Lady.
I was in the area yesterday, down over in kind of the Easttown area. Part of the procession will go through there, and people were already talking about finding a seat near a window so they could watch this. I'm sure as many of them may have done 4.5 years ago. You pointed out earlier, Brian, and I thought accurately so.
Oh, no, there's a dog
There's
loose.
a dog in the way there. I think somebody got him.
4.5 years ago, when the president came home to Grand Rapids, and how people turned out, and in East particularly, they felt that affinity because you remember the signs that go into East Grand Rapids would say home of President Gerald R. Ford, because that's where their last residence in this area was.
They had discussed at a time to get rid of that. Now on to Lake Drive as the procession heading into the East Hills, East Town area. Yeah, the East Grand Rapids at one point in time had debated removing that language from their welcome sign into the city, and there was such a public outcry. I vividly remember that particular city council meeting. It was packed, and it was overwhelmingly in favor of keeping that sign the way it was. Before they've got they're wooden, they're quite decorative signs now. This was during the time that they were transitioning into those from the old ones, which used to have like kind of an American flag pattern and whatnot.
I remember
but
that.
they demanded that language remain on those signs.
There, in our huge file of archival material, we will not find this, so I'm trying to telegraph to producers, don't try to find this because it's going to be far too difficult. There is a great picture of the East Grand Rapids city limit sign when Gerald Ford took the oath of office, and they went over and took tape, and it said home of Vice President Gerald Ford, and they just put tape over the part that said Vice.
24-hour News 8 Steve Kelso is the only reporter in the motorcade. Steve, can you talk to us?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm actually shooting some video as we roll along here. I'll tell you, it's a pretty impressive display of folks who've come out today to say goodbye to Betty Ford. She makes one of her final trips down the streets of her hometown, Grand Rapids. I've seen a number of people out here with flags. There are people out here in Boy Scout uniforms. Somebody actually had a giant portrait of Jerry Ford that they were holding out here. There's a sign coming up here that says Betty Bloomer Ford, a grand lady. So a nice turnout of folks who've come out to witness this funeral processional as we wind our way to the church and then eventually back to the museum.
Thank you, Steve Kelso. I can't wait to see those pictures. It's always a very interesting vantage point to get it from the motorcade. You can imagine what the family's seeing as they go in.
Tony Tagliavia is at Lake and Plymouth. Tony?
So as we mentioned when we were with you during the noon hour, this place is just a few hundred feet away from Blodgett Hospital. So as news has come out that the procession is making its way in this direction, we've seen hospital employees come out and a growing number of just families who are in this area come out. And Elaine Loroff was with us, and you said you and your young daughter were here 4.5 years ago.
Right, yes. When Gerald Ford came down the street, we were here, and I thought the girls would, it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that they should see it. So whether they're happy about being here or not, they're here.
Yeah. And you said just kind of a once in a lifetime, this is something that they're not going to see again in their lifetime.
Right, yeah, exactly.
What do you think Betty Ford's legacy in this community is?
In this community, she's got her whole breast cancer thing, and then also the drug awareness and so on. So I think that's nationwide, but also here in Grand Rapids as her home.
Elaine, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. And as she mentioned, that is part of her legacy nationwide, but also a special part of her legacy here. The Betty Ford Cancer Center began here at Blodgett Hospital in 1987. It continues as the Betty Ford Diagnostic Breast Center over at the Lemon Holton Cancer Pavilion in downtown Grand Rapids. Many more people coming out here as this procession approaches. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Tony. These are live pictures right now of inside the church. What a beautiful, beautiful scene that is.
All of the seating inside the church has been assigned. All of the guests are known, and so everyone will come in and be directed to their specific seat. The family, of course, is the very front of the church, very much like the seating arrangement we saw in California. And then you'll see the dignitaries, former President Clinton, we expect, former First Lady Barbara Bush, the Japanese ambassador, perhaps former Secretary Rumsfeld, if indeed he is here. We have some anecdotal information that we believe he is coming to Grand Rapids, and there may be others. Those folks will be seated on the other side across from the family, and then all of the other invited guests will be in their assigned spots throughout there today. It's a big undertaking. You have a lot of security issues, of course, as we watch the procession move closer to the church, and so that's one of the reasons people who have to get in so early be in place, and then there are some requirements that you don't move once the dignitaries and families start coming through.
This procession moving toward Lake Drive and Plymouth right now. This is our vantage point.
That's entering East Grand Rapids, and folks there, right there at the entrance to the city, waving to the motorcade as it goes by. Shot there, kids waving their American flag.
It's a wonderful opportunity for kids to experience this. They'll be glad that they did, like that mom said a few minutes ago. I don't know how happy they are to be here. They will be later when they understand the magnitude of this historical moment. That's as right. Betty Ford is brought home and she travels to her funeral service. That's where we find Joe LaFurgey. Joe, what are you seeing?
So we're looking, pointing west down Hall Street. We expect that motorcade, the procession, to arrive here just about any minute. You see a lot of people standing by, waiting to welcome Mrs. Ford back for her funeral. You see that there's been a shift in the security forces down here in the last couple of minutes. You can tell all the dignitaries are inside and safe. There's still obviously quite a bit of security there, but a lot of the officers have shifted to the other side, of the west side of the church, the actual entrance facing the south. That is where Mrs. Ford's casket will be brought into the church. A lot of the dignitaries entering on a door off to the east. So again, a lot of that security has shifted. You can kind of tell that they're getting closer just by watching the security folks, by watching the folks here waiting for the arrival of the motorcade as well, anticipating that motorcade. And I would expect, as I monitor the travel, that they will be here any minute now. Obviously, they're going to hit a lot of these neighborhoods. There's going to be a lot of people outside, so they are taking their time to get here. They want everybody to get a chance to pay their final respects. All these folks that have come out and on a nice afternoon, on a nice Thursday afternoon, nice warm temperatures, beautiful weather, to honor Mrs. Ford, and obviously I can remember back in 2007 standing on these very streets as folks turned out in that January weather. It was mild that day for January, but it was still January. I remember them coming out and doing the same thing, lining the streets, hundreds and hundreds of people throughout Grand Rapids and East Grand Rapids into the neighborhoods, and it looks like we're going to have much the same situation here as again as we wait for that motorcade motorcade to make its way through and to Grace Episcopal Church here at Hall in Plymouth. And we expect that to happen momentarily. Just taking a look right now around the grounds of the church, you see some of the security, some of the folks who have helped prepare for this standing by as they too wait for the procession to arrive here at the church. We see a lot of military, a lot of police officers down the street. You can see a lot of folks lined up. We're looking right now to the east down Hall Street. And we are hearing that the motorcade is, through some of the police radios here on the scene, we can hear that it is getting extremely close. We're still watching for it to come in. You're watching off of one of our other cameras, the hearse. We're going to
And welcome back to our live coverage. As you look at from outside of Grace Episcopal Church, the Grand Rapids Police Department, some state police officers keeping the crowd right where they want them. They've got some barriers set up as you see the motorcade there in the distance making its way to the church. A very good crowd has gathered here in East Grand Rapids. Families bringing out their kids, the grandparents. Always time for a little history lesson, I guess, in the middle of summer vacation. And this is history unfolding here in our community today as we say goodbye to former First Lady Betty Ford.
I think this is Joe LaFurgey's vantage point out there. I don't know if Joe is with us and listening or not, but I'd like to get an idea because it looks like there is the larger crowds that we have seen are here
definitely
at the church today.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, Rick. Yeah, there's extremely large crowd here. We are looking, our camera shot is looking east down Hall Street right now as you see some of the flashing blue lights approach. But from the east down Hall Street, if you look at west, hundreds of people have turned out.
Very much as the family had wanted. They wanted this to be a community-wide remembrance, celebration, wanted involvement. And we had suspected with today's weather, with the fact that so many kids are out of school, parents can take them down, as you pointed out a couple of times, Brian and Sue. Emily Leonard this morning referred to it as a learning opportunity.
We have I hate to interrupt for a second, Sarah, but we do have the Betty Ford and the hearse arriving right in front of the church with us right now, and I have to agree, it really sort of gives you a chill. It is definitely a moment. We heard the roar of the motorcycles, and now everything is just completely silent, and really it's just a moment as we're waiting for the ceremonial part.
Post 1, 23 to 12, please advise when your motorcade
watching the motorcade pull up to Grace Episcopal Church in East Grand Rapids. You can see the people there gathering on the sidewalk as they prepare to take the casket out of the hearse.
Yeah, Rick and I, Sue, here just speculating. It looks like they've got the hearses pulled off around the corner from where the rest of the family will enter the sanctuary. The hearse, they're stationed outside the main entrance of the church. And we believe that they'll let everyone get in and get to their seats, and then we will see the body taken from the hearse and brought into the church. We can tell you, too, 24-Hour News 8's Leon Hendricks is inside the sanctuary, inside Grace Episcopal Church for the service as well.
This is, again, something we were able to do, like having Steve in the motorcade. Today we had Brett Thomas 4.5 years ago, and like having Leon in the church, we had the only reporter there for the president's funeral as well. And one of the things that we try to do is give you the complete experience, because there is a considerable difference in watching this on television and being in that church. And I think the last time, 4.5 years ago, when we looked back at the impressions from the reporter in the church and got the sights and sounds from inside the church, it really kind of brought it home. Very much like the ceremony yesterday, where after talking to people, I was mesmerized watching it here, but they said there, and I think you called it earlier, a cavernous area where they had that great military band or choir that was singing. And I guess it was just fabulous to be in there yesterday and to hear and see. And so we try to bring you as much of that experience as you can, because clearly there are hundreds of, perhaps thousands of people who would love to attend this service, but there simply isn't room. Seeing some of the foundation members there, I think that's Steve Van Andel on the extreme side of the screen. The Ford Foundation, of course, very instrumental in keeping the legacy of President and First Lady Betty Ford alive, and so some of them have been seated there, and those are some of the people we saw yesterday. They very much are the names in the community that you've come to expect to be part of whatever happens. The Myers and the DeVosses and the Van Andels, they very much are interested in preserving and promoting the legacy of Grand Rapids and Michigan's only President and First Lady.
You can see our cameras there as Betty Ford's casket is inside that hearse. They prepared to bring her in for the services. Right now the church is filling up with, as Rick mentioned, dignitaries and many other people with close ties to the family being brought in to pay their respects. There's that beautiful shot. Again, Leon Hendricks is inside that church, and we'll get his perspective after the ceremony. It is so good to see how many people turned out there. You know, as Joe LaFurgy mentioned, you have all of these people that came down to the church and came outside to make this historical moment something that will be a lasting impact for their families, for their children. And Rick, like you said, this is the only president in the state of Michigan. He's right here in our hometown of Grand Rapids. What a wonderful way to celebrate the legacy of this family and what they mean to West Michigan, and they mean so much.